Tom, I haven't prepared anything.
It's okay. We can just talk. Let's just have a conversation.
Exactly, that's about it.
Yeah.
And
Let me get my coffee.
yeah, get your coffee.
Now we have a coffee.
Yes, sir. No, I just wanted to sit a bit with you because you were actually the first person to actually welcome me when I joined 2 years ago, and I felt like in a way we are closing a little bit that loop by having a moment together today.
Yeah.
Because today is your last show, right?
Yeah, it's my last show after I was first hired in March of 2014, so almost 5 years ago.
So very first time, 14.
Yeah.
You had like. Did they call you, or you were already in their base as a juggler?
Yeah.
How did it work? Or you were in touch with Greg already?
Yeah, so it was like all of those things put together. So, you know, I competed at the IJA Championships, and after that I was thinking about like, oh, you know, I've got this good video. I have like finally like some kind of a title behind my name. Like, what could I do? Like, what agencies? Whatever. And so I made a casting profile with my ball juggling video, and eventually, you know, as years progressed and my material changed, I uploaded a bunch of, you know, things like juggling plates and, you know, doing kind of weirder in terms of what mainstream juggling is, weirder demo videos, and so Greg decided that he was leaving, which was largely in part, I believe, because of the revamp within the company, you know, closing the schools and things. He had kids on tour. And he hired this guy, Chris Giappini. He hired a different guy, and so Chris was in Montreal. He was starting to train the thing, and in that period of time, Greg had a casting for a new show that he was putting together called Theorem, and that sounded very interesting to me. You know, I'd never met Greg, but he had a great reputation. In terms of the work that he was doing, and so I went to that, and I was offered one of the spots in his show. And then about 2 weeks after that, Chris had some kind of an injury, some kind of an accident, so he was out. And Soleil realized that they needed to find somebody that could learn the act like super quick. So I had a profiling casting in Montreal. Apparently was looking at me, and then at the same time, Greg said like, "Hey, I just met this guy Tom. Like, he seems like he would be a very good fit." So I got a phone call from Soleil a couple of days later, and they basically said, you know, like, "Hey, the show's in Portland, Oregon right now, and we're not looking at anybody else. And if you can get 100 catches of 7 balls in the cone in the 3 days that we're willing to fly you out here, you have a job. If you don't, we're going to open up a casting call and do all of this stuff." And so it was like the most stressful audition I've ever had in my life.
That's a funny ultimatum.
Yeah. And
funny, I'm not sure, but challenging.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean,
you never been in the cone before?
Never. You know, I saw the cone when Greg was the special guest at the Lexington, Kentucky IJA or something. Greg was one of the guests in the Cascade of Stars.
Which, by the way, the cone. So Greg built the cone in which year? What year was it? In the 90s, was it?
I think it was in the early 2000s.
Yeah, early 2000s.
I think so. Yeah. He had a video that went like crazy viral on YouTube, just like all over online. It has millions of views now. It's called like Conic Preview, and that's what Greg calls the cone. The act is called Conic.
Conic.
He has special names for all of his things. So I'd never been in it. And the cone is a tricky thing to learn how to do, I would say. Like, if I had to make an analogy, it's kind of like you know how to type. Everyone learns how to type when they're in like middle school or probably earlier now. And imagine like the layout of the keyboard totally changes. And so like you still know how to type, like how to tell your fingers to move in different ways, but you have to kind of remap what's going on. You know, if you want to hit an I, you know, you don't go over there, now you have to go over there. So like the same way in the cone, like if you make a throw there, the catch doesn't happen here, the catch happens here. So it's kind of bending, juggling. And in the cone, like the angles are really important, because I mean there's like a big mathy explanation for it, but like the difference, like throw height in juggling, you know, you throw it up and the more force you put into it, the later it comes back down. In the cone, depending on the angle that you throw, you're actually adjusting the height because of the way that geometry works or whatever. Like if you throw this way, it's really short. If you throw it this way, it has to travel a lot further. So yeah, sort of like learning what the controls are, where the variables are that you can play with. So it's not just throwing harder equals higher. It's harder actually equals faster in the cone, like it returns more quickly.
So you had to jump into that cone and catch those balls another time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which you did on the first or on the third day?
The third day, I could get some short runs, and then the last day, Greg was just like, "Look, we're gonna set up a camera."
He was here, so he was there. You did all that audition with Greg on the side. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. He was sitting on the lifeguard chair, in the big top. He got the cone, and there's this lifeguard chair, and so he was sitting on it, just sort of like peering down at me.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, which I think he quite enjoyed.
I can picture him some.
Yeah, exactly.
So and then you kept going 100 something.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they wanted me to just stay after that. They were like, Tom, I was like, I just brought like a little wheelie suitcase with whatever. I can't commit to being here for that long. Especially because like my parents were living in Ethiopia at the time, and we had planned this trip where I would go and sort of see their work that they were doing. Yeah, so the day after I finished in Portland, I repacked my bags and I flew to Ethiopia the following day. I was there for 2 weeks with my parents, and then I flew back and I repacked some things and I went directly back to Portland after that.
Yeah.
And so I was there for like the last month of Portland, I think. Just training backstage every day, 2 hours every day. And I did the transfer to Vancouver, which was exciting. That was when Vlad had just started.
Yeah.
And Vlad speaks pretty good English now, but when he first started, it was non-existent, man. And Montreal had screwed up some of the immigration paperwork for both me and Vlad. They accidentally processed 2 work permits and 2 living permits or whatever it was. Yeah. So we both got called into this back room at the Vancouver airport, and they were questioning us, like, why? What kind of fraud are you trying to pull? And Vlad was like, hi.
And nobody from Cirque came to save you?
No. It was like this closed area, and I had no idea who our immigration person was. There's so many people in the office, and when you first show up, there's so many people. It's like, what does everybody do?
Yeah, of course.
But it eventually got sorted out. We were just held back there for an hour and a half or something. And then
What do you mean you're a juggler?
And then my very first show, I don't remember what day it was. I'm sure I have it written down. I think it was maybe in May or something. It was 2 months of training, and then I finally did my first show. And I remember I had such a hard time sleeping the night before. It was so how it is, your very first time with the company. And I had all these nightmares about what if I get in the cone and I just start vomiting everywhere, and the balls and the vomit and the glass.
I mean, we all have all tricky minds that bring us all kind of beliefs and limit us. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm pretty sure we can relate as artists, most of us, to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, right. It's
those irrational fears that we have.
Yeah, and it's would you call that stage fright, or is that just before you have an interview for whatever job? Of course you're going to doubt yourself at some point. So that was a thing. But I managed to do my first week without a single drop. My hands were definitely shaky the whole time.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, and then I had my first drop on stage in that second week, and I just remember I felt just the world swallow me up. I was so
it's funny because when I joined here and I saw you and I'll always clean you on stage, for me, which is totally out of this world. I was feel, wow, that's a different relationship to drop that we have as jugglers, and man, I'm always so impressed to see how clean it is. I don't know how you enter your routine to be able to is it because you're counting? Is it because your body memory is so? Hey, this guy, we were talking about him. I don't know. Yeah, how would you say the the cleanliness of your acts and dropless consistency that you have, would you say it's really just because you're not getting out of the show as it builds? Is it how would you describe that? Is it something you really let your body work, or your mind goes in the way sometime? It's so interesting for me.
I think, I mean, there are a couple of different ways, and like every day, like you're a new person, like you
you have to deal with how you feel that day and jumping on stage anyway, so that's why I'm always like, wow, how the fuck is doing it.
I'm trying to think about how to say this, like I read a lot of one of the things that has informed my relationship to some of the work is I've read a lot of books about like mindfulness meditation and stoicism and these things, and sort of about being in the moment, which is not something that I'm necessarily very good at in my day-to-day life, but every day your day-to-day life is a different thing, but every day the show is the exact same thing. So in some ways it's a really beautiful opportunity to try different thought processes, different things. So a lot of the act that I do, even though it doesn't look like it, is cued specifically with the music. There are a couple of places where the tempo really changes, or something. I mean, I remember when I first listened to the music, I couldn't tell any one part of the music apart from any other part. Like it's because I mean there are 3 instruments on stage. Like it just sounds kind of the same. Apologies to Charlie for saying that. So I have moments where I know it's like, okay, I do 6 throws of this, and then I switch to this other thing, and I do have a count that goes in my head, which is a really nice thing to, like, if your mind starts to wander, you just start focusing on that, and I think that's
on the counts.
On the counts, and I think that's where some of the mindfulness kind of things come into play, like being able to focus on one thing and shut everything else out. But I know that historically when I have dropped or made mistakes on stage, it's because my mind starts to wander and my body is taking over, and then I realize consciously it's like, oh, I need to focus on this thing, and it's when you make the switch from letting your body do it versus letting your brain do it, that's when the mistakes happen. Like there's that one little moment of no control when you're switching who's controlling what. I don't think that's useful information for anybody. But
that is really.
But it's because I mean, like when you're having a really bad day or something else is on your mind, like you just sort of let your body take over. But that's something that only comes with repetition. This is the closest to any act I've ever gotten in my life. Like I have this glass balancing act, and I've probably performed that on stage like 400 times, but I've done this show, 3 times more than that. So there really is something to be said about your body learning it. Like, I was first hired as a medical replacement, and I had done the act maybe 200 times, and then I was away from it for a year, and then I got called back to do the premiere in Tokyo, and I was on a flight like 8 hours after Neela called me. And when I showed up, they said, okay, well, like the premiere is tonight in like 6 hours. Would it be helpful for you to get in the cone and try it? Yeah, of course. Are you kidding me? I haven't done anything. I haven't even thought about this show since like the last finale dance. I don't even remember finale dance. Are you kidding me? And so like, and I just got in the cone, and I was thinking like, oh, how does the routine go? What does it do? And you make that first throw, and your body knows exactly what happens. Everywhere after that first throw, it's like a really amazing thing. And then like a week into it, I felt like I had never left. At least in terms of my relationship with the material, it was still there. So
and
cool.
Definitely. And did you feel okay? Because that act is definitely really timed, and counts are really accurate and related to the music. Were you at some point still able to explore a little bit and find a bit of your own, or was it actually a side of it that it was kind of limiting for you, not to be able to bring up more of your ideas and material to it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, when I was first hired, it was like such a quick thing. I think that they really just wanted me to do exactly what Greg does and just leave it at that. And so I was never really offered the opportunity to explore, experiment, or do anything else. And on top of that, like, you know, like as an artist, yeah, I like to create, but there's also a big part of my head which is always about like you know, like the legalities behind things and like, you know, what is the benefit, you know, that sort of like more calculating business side. And you know, Greg owns the cone, he owns the material, he owns everything, and so really there's no net benefit for me to spend more time working on enhancing the material and things. You know, like if artistic is happy, that's great. I don't have to train more time in the cone. I can work on other projects that are fulfilling to me. So I think that's always been something that maybe hindered isn't the right word, but like that's been a factor in the way that I approach the show. Yeah, and I mean that's something that, you know, like when I see what you're doing and you add new things and you sort of change little things just to make it more interesting or more exciting or...
Yeah, but definitely because of that, I'm definitely make much more mistakes, of course.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I have a relationship different for that, but I feel I need on a daily basis to approach it differently every day somehow.
Yeah, of course. It keeps you awake.
It keeps me awake, that's for sure.
Right,
even though I can relate to, especially lately, like I felt out of flow, you know, because too much of going and delivering, but sometimes with a bit of less flame than some other days, you know.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
That's obviously what we will have to experience with such a rhythm.
Nice things about being an old man character too.
Yeah.
It's like some days like the tired, arthritic, slow moving is a very honest representation of how I feel. Yeah, for sure. I had a conversation with Misha about that one time. Like I think he was having like he didn't sleep very well and he was like kind of in a weird mood. I think his family had just gone back home or something. And I was trying to like pump him up. I was like, Misha, it's time for animation. Like, oh, can you believe it? Like, it's gonna be so much fun, Misha. It's that totally artificial, like saccharine excitement. And he was like, no, Tom, like, if you do that, people know. People can tell it's fake. And so, like, if you feel like 20% in your heart and your body, give 100% of that 20%. Don't try to inflate it. And if that happens, people will like.
It is true.
Love it. It's just like, this is who I am.
Yeah, exactly. You go with what you have to give, to deliver. You make the best out of that.
Yeah.
And I think people will still feel more of that authenticity than if you overplay everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest lessons that I've learned here. It's you know, don't try and show more things. You know, don't try and just be honest, be authentic, and that's what really resonates with people at the end of the day. Which is cool. But I mean, going back to changing the act to doing more things, in Japan I wrote a different version of the Kone act. I mean, the bones of it were the same, but from a technical standpoint it was much more challenging. There were a bunch of like 5-ball multiplex patterns, and it finished with 9 balls. There were some like weird high-low shower variations that were in there. And I showed it to Artistic, and they asked me what I'd changed. And so, the artistic team, like even Montreal, there are not many jugglers that are represented, and I know that a lot of the juggling tricks that like get us excited are like really little variations. And it's like I catch the stick like this instead of this. It's like that's a totally different thing.
That's the ungrateful part of juggling sometimes, because you spend time on creating some stuff, and well, what did you do different? No, nothing.
And for me, it's like on top of that, all that, the cone is a different thing. It's in some ways the exciting part is the novelty of it. It's not the technique. But I always, I thought it's like, okay, finishing with 9. Like Greg never even finished with 9. It's like I've got this beautiful 9-ball cascade, and like, this was the offer that I made to you guys, and you don't like it. It's like, okay, I'm going to work on my own stuff then. That really reinforced that idea. or like I guess it reminds you this is an entertainment company at the end of it. I mean, now it's even in the name, Cirque du Soleil Entertainment Group. It's not circus company. It's not artistic visionary. You know, it's entertainment. And I'm not saying that that's like a good thing or a bad thing. It's like, you know, your job as an artist is to deliver a consistent product here. And that's the word, product. It's not like masterpiece or opus or something like that. It's to be good and clean. And
yeah, it's even in all people interest to support that new people coming can bring their ideas, can bring their own touch and personality.
Absolutely.
Especially for shows that are touring for that long. You want it to be fresh. The audience has to feel people are still mostly happy to be here.
Yeah, totally.
And so I hope and do believe that management can still, you know, keep an eye on this and feel that it's a total important thing in order to be a long-term relationship both with your employees and with the audience that come.
And I think that goes back to the idea of like authenticity, you know, like if you are authentically, genuinely, extremely bored with your job, that's also going to read.
Of course.
So yeah, exactly. I mean, you remember like back in Japan, like the cast would always play volleyball on like whatever day, on Wednesday nights or something. I think just having any little thing that would change your day-to-day life, like that all bleeds over into the work, you know? Like you're going to look more excited if you are more excited about playing volleyball with your friends after the show. You know?
So is it also after this kind of moment where you realize, okay, I'm gonna do what I have to do, and then start putting your attention to other projects that you started working on your book also?
Yeah.
Is it about the same?
Yeah, it's about the same time. Yeah, because when you like in Japan, I signed I think 5 different temporary contracts. There were always extensions of this other thing. And so I always had this end date in the back of my head. It's like, you know, like, oh man, in May I'm gonna be a freelancer again, so I need to make sure that I'm working on new material and interesting things. And you know, eventually they would offer me another temporary contract, but it was still like, okay, well, at the end of July I've got to, you know, still work on my own things. I'm gonna be a freelancer again. And I think when I signed the permanent contract at the end of Japan, that's really when there was this switch that went on, where it was like, okay, like I have this, in some ways, this luxury of knowing that I have consistent work and I just have to do this one thing. What can I do that will benefit me at the end of this permanent contract? Like, let's zoom out, let's think like longer term. And so like in the past 2 years, I started working on this book project, and now it's all coming together. You know, like I've seen the physical proof. I've got a bunch of work plans this coming summer that's all book related. You know, I'm doing these shows in libraries.
And it's funny that it's out at the moment that you're getting out of here, so it's really like okay, perfect. You can
it's like a really natural,
back on something new and
natural transition. Yeah. So I was talking to a friend the other day too about, we were talking about the relationship that you have to your work. And like last week we performed for Madonna, and like 3 weeks before that we performed for Prince Harry. You know, like Royal Albert Hall, like, you know, like the crowning thing for a lot of people. And right now, in this moment, like, you know, having just had those experiences, I'm honestly a little bit more excited and interested about doing a totally, like, a free show. I'm not going to pay a dime for it, at a St. Louis public library.
Same, like...
it's like crazy, right?
But last week people asked me, were you so impressed to meet Harry and Meghan out there in real life? Well, first of all, it was not really real life. We spoke for a minute, and I told them, this is a great memory, it's great, I'm grateful we're here, we're at the hall, we're really experiencing something quite special. Mm-hmm. But I was in Paris for 2 months before, playing for my relatives, and it has so much more impact for me to play for the people you love, you know, than for strangers, even though they're famous people.
Of course. Yeah, it's really funny how that works. I mean, I remember...
hype is a funny thing, you know, like people get hyped for a lot of things, you know. Back to Philadelphia, right? Mm-hmm. After that show.
Yeah, going to Philadelphia. And I'll be in Philly for like 3 days, 4 days, and then fly to Cincinnati to see some friends. We're all going to drive up to the Mondo Juggling Festival together. And I'm hosting that show. I'm emceeing a big gala show there.
Great.
Yeah, the show is just all friends.
Yeah.
I'm in the show. My wife's in the show. You know Stephen McGatz, who's the juggler on Kidam.
Okay.
He's the headliner. He's doing 30 minutes. At the
Yeah.
end, and
So great.
it'll be fun to talk to him. Yeah, and then after that, we're going to the Cincinnati Juggling Festival. It's just again like just friends. It's kind of like the whole thing. You know, I haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah, it takes you back to why you started doing this. You know,
Exactly,
like
yeah.
the bonds you created through juggling, the things you discover in yourself because of hey, wait, I can be not too bad at that. Like and be creative, be more confident, be like like I don't know how it's. How old were you when you started? Was it in your teenage when you started
juggling?
Yeah.
When I started juggling, like taking it seriously, I was like 16 or 17.
16? And was it out of such an event or meeting someone?
Club, yeah.
That was that juggling club?
Yeah. I learned to juggle in my backyard, reading Dave Finnegan's book, Complete Juggler. And my family moved around a lot when I was a kid. And when we moved from LA to St. Louis, I got on Rec.Juggling, or Juggling DB or whatever it was. And I saw there was a juggling club that met like a mile and a half from our new house. And my parents were so excited that I was interested in going out and being social or whatever. And I went there and I learned how to do a kick up with clubs. I had my 3 Dubé clubs, they're purple foil on them. And everybody there was just like so nice. I just went back every single week.
Yeah, there's a sense of community in the juggling world that is quite unique. I feel like that you don't get in all areas of sports. Or I mean, you can get that in many other places, but the fact that we are a quite small community, worldwide, and there's not such a competition between people because there's spots for everyone. Basically, if you want to push it, I always found this is really special what we're having. Like,
and like if you're working on something, somebody that can do it is gonna help you. They're gonna help you up, and that's like you don't really see that necessarily in dance, or you don't see that in acrobatics.
Music. It's so competitive. There's so many people on the field. So for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And that's. I remember when Chloe and I were first starting to date. She was teaching like stretching and contortion and acrobatics and trapeze and silks and all of this stuff. And I tried to explain to her like she came to the juggling club that was at NECA, this studio, and I was helping somebody with. It's like, oh, you want to learn 5 balls? Like here's how you do it. She's like, well, are you getting paid for this? Like how? It's like, no, like he wants to learn 5 balls. I can juggle 5 balls. I have thoughts about it. Like I'll help him, sure. It's like, but like your time is. It's like, my time, like it'll come around eventually. I don't know, like
exactly.
There's no secret to it. Throw higher. That's it. How many different ways do I need to explain to this guy that he really understands? It's just throw higher. That's it. That's all. But I mean, yes, it's a really beautiful thing, and I have all these blog articles that I've been posting on my website. Things like one of the biggest one is juggling 5 balls. Every month it gets over 10,000 hits. Can you believe that? It's like it's unreal. And I've got one about juggling with the balance and all that kind of thing. And I've been to festivals and like even here, like sometimes somebody, or I think maybe it was when we were in Spain, like there would be a juggler that would like message you on Instagram or something saying like, hey, I'm coming to the show, I'd love to meet you afterwards. And you go and you talk to them and they're like, yeah, like I learned to juggle like 5 balls because of your article. It's like you're a total stranger, but I've had an impact on you.
That's the thing.
Like, it's beautiful.
Nowadays with the networks, we can really get close to anyone who has the same passion in the world, like super fast.
Yeah.
And would you say that? Okay, so you started that blog even prior to your book, right?
Yeah, I started it.
Documenting like this, was it for you a way to, I don't know, to keep researching in your own field? Was it a way to stabilize some of your ideas about it?
50-50. So my first temporary extension was going from Vancouver to New Zealand, and that was when I started really understanding the way that the schedule on tour is. And it was around that time that I realized it's like, okay, like the show is the show, and the time that I have apart is my own time, that I can do anything. And I'm going to be so far away from like, teaching workshops and doing all that because I'm across the planet, that I started this blog to I guess, sort of capture some of my opinions about training technique, or like how to act, like put together an act, or just random thoughts or things like that. And as I wrote some of these articles, more and more people started sending me messages. It's like, oh, I read your article about like site swap notation, and it like it really helped me. Like, I've got this other question about how do you do this, and so I started seeing where the gaps were sort of in the literature behind juggling, or like even just like modern juggling technique. Dave Finnegan's book, The Complete Juggler, is like one of the best-selling books out there. But in terms of technique, like all the thoughts there about training are from the 80s, and that was before site swap. That was before a lot of the modern theory about it. And so I started assembling those, and that's eventually going to turn into a book that should be released in 2020. There's a publisher that's excited about it, and I'm excited that they're excited. Yeah. So I mean, I like, even if you just like write stuff down in your journal, or write things down, just like thoughts or perspectives or things, it's never a bad thing to put your ideas on paper.
That's for sure. Okay, you would think creativity is something flowy that comes and goes, and it's not very squared, and it cannot be really put in boxes. But somehow, finding ways to structure our creative ideas.
Yeah, sure.
It's becomes a great way to approach our work. I think,
Yeah, and I mean, even if it's like you have some moment of inspiration that's totally irrelevant to whatever you're working on at the time, if you write it down, you can come back to it in a year, 2 years, 5 years, and be like, oh, that was a cool thing. I'm gonna keep exploring that. I remember I took a workshop with Dan Holtzman at the Boulder Juggling Festival. He's like a super famous juggling comedian guy. He was part of the Raspini brothers, and yeah, in that workshop, it was about creativity and like sort of like his process and how to write jokes and how to be good at your job like he is good at his job. And one of the things that he said was like, no matter what idea you have of a routine, like let's say you wake up in the middle of the night and you have this crazy idea about juggling a head of cabbage or something. He was saying that as a creative person, you have this moral obligation to follow through with every single idea that you have. You can't just write the idea on paper, write one or two jokes, and say like, oh, that's crap. It's like, no. You got to think about the staging. You got to think about what you're actually going to do. Where the applause points might be, and like once you actually have a finished product, you can step outside of it and say like, is this worth actually pursuing and putting on stage or no? And you make so many discoveries by that kind of follow through, and you get so much more efficient at creating material by following through with everything, that it becomes easier and easier to come up with good or interesting thoughts, which isn't necessarily maybe relevant to like contemporary 3-ball juggling set to music or whatever, but it's still a good tool to keep in the back of your head, that kind of reminder.
You told me that you discovered juggling on a teenage, but maybe it was not by then already that you think, oh, maybe I could do something out of it as a career. Or is it something that happened?
No, I totally fell into it.
Yeah, because after when you were in age to go to college, you did, right?
Yeah, I went to university straight out of high school. When I was in high school, I'd taken 4 years of Spanish and 2 years of German, and I really thought that maybe my career path was going to be some kind of like an interpreter for, maybe for the UN or something, or just being a tour guide or something where I interact with people, because I always enjoyed that, and I enjoyed like helping people, and interpretation is like the textbook definition of helping people, know. And so I studied Spanish and German and Portuguese and Arabic and like applied linguistics and like communication design, like designing signs or illustration, really thinking that was going to turn into some kind of a tool.
Which still.
Oh yeah, and it definitely has helped me. Like I've given juggling workshops in Arabic before. And I never thought that would ever happen.
Yeah.
And I've worked a lot in Mexico and Spain, and but my first like real experience on stage performing, I would say it was my senior year of university, my 4th year of university, and I was dating an admissions officer at the school at the time, which I'm not sure was necessarily allowed, but it was.
I hope she's not working there anymore, so she don't get fired.
She's long gone. And so she knew that I was a juggler and that I was running the juggling club, and they always had these events where prospective students would come, and they would want to meet people that ran student organizations and try and show off why this is such a great school to go to. And so I got plugged in with those events, and usually once a month or sometimes twice a month, I would be told, okay, well, you have to do 20 minutes of something. This is the time that we have to fill, and then the Chinese Dance Association is going to do a little thing, and it's just a little show, super informal. We just get to meet students that are doing things. And at first, I would do them with a friend of mine. Would pass, would do whatever, talk about juggling, and then slowly that morphed into me doing more events for the school just as a solo performer. And I found some of those old videos, and it's oh my god, you just watch it, Tom, don't say that, don't stand like that, oh, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing. But I didn't know what I was doing, it was just, do a comedy juggling act, juggling knives or something. And I think that's when I got my first taste of it, where I thought oh, maybe this is something that I could do. And eventually, I couldn't find a job with a degree in German literature. That's officially what it says on my diploma. But I got picked up by a circus sideshow, a really a hardcore sideshow. I lived on a prison bus with Zamora the Torture King and Bryce the Governor and sword swallowers and stuff. And that was the family friendly portion of the show. Zamora would eat light bulbs and stick needles through his skin and be breathing fire and stuff. And, let's juggle knives. This is fun. And so I did. I think it was maybe 80 shows with them over the course of a summer, and that was my first time out in the wild. It's here's a show, here's a product. It wasn't hey, you want to be in this university, you better laugh at these jokes, And it was the first time in my life that I'd made decent money. And looking back at it, it wasn't such a great gig, but those experiences really helped shape a lot of what I do now. I don't even remember what the question was.
No, but that's no, I guess that's about that. That's how. Basically, how you made that move from a more classical, background to a less conventional path of a worldwide juggler.
Of course.
Which I can relate to also as being a student of business management communication, and then not finding a job and moving to that life.
Moving to Hong Kong.
But those are great moments when you don't find actually something that you would say, oh, that must have been my past. No, when you actually have that time off to really realize, wait a minute, I studied for 5 years on an expensive school, and I cannot find anything interesting to work afterwards. Maybe it's worth putting that time and energy into something I do love.
For sure. I mean, in a lot of the arts, they say that creativity comes from limitation. If you're limited by okay, I can't find a job, let's find something that works. That's kind of a beautiful thing. I think that's really helped me a lot too, in managing the PR side of my career, and understanding what is a story, how can I send press releases out, how can you possibly when I signed the permanent contract, I got that news on the front page of my hometown newspaper, St. Louis newspaper, which was surprising. I thought it was just going to be a little web thing, and then it turns out the guy came to the show that I was doing that night, took a picture, and it was
local news are always great for that. The same also in my hometown. They've been following. It's cool.
It's super, super cool. And how valuable is that going on? It's I don't know, but if an agent is looking you up and they Google you, and they see that you've been all these newspaper hits show up, it's okay, he must be he's a known quantity. He's easier to hire. It makes it super cool. So I think that's good. And that's one of the things that I see so many like up and coming performers, or like the kids these days that have like amazing technique and stuff, and like maybe they've got a pretty good show, but they can't handle the business side of it, because I think that's the difference between working as a freelancer and working for a company like Soleil. Like Soleil, you just have to eat lunch and go to bed and do your act. That's it.
No.
Like there's none of the business side. I think that's one of the reasons why this company is so appealing for a lot of people. It's like if you're struggling as a freelancer, you kind of need to be here. But learning to be your own manager is like one of the biggest, most freeing assets that you can have as a performer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's why I feel in Soleil we have a lot of different type of profiles, and you can see the ones that have already experienced some freelance before.
Yeah.
I don't worry at all, for those people. They will be building their own projects again after, and
of course.
And actually it will fit them somehow more.
Yeah.
And for some, it's also depending on what kind of discipline you're doing. Of course, like you can, as jugglers, it's much easier for us to find job than as a Russian bar porter. It's okay, kid, no worries.
How's it going, man?
And no, definitely. I mean, it's not judgment or blaming. It's definitely a different type of stuff. When you come from a more sports background, gymnastic, and you're casted for cirque in your early 20s, for example, you have no experience of anything else yet.
Right, of course.
And so the after Soleil is a total new story. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So, and I think there's a big difference in the way that people here like self-identify too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were mentioning.
I'm like a variety entertainer, keyword entertainer. It's like, sure, there is an art to what I do, but like at the end of the day, my product is an entertainment product. I'm not going to be working in a fine arts museum.
Yeah.
And then you have people that are definitely athletes. Like the whole thing is like it's athletics. It's nothing else. Athletics. And then you have people that really identify as like artists, like pure artists, and yeah, no, I mean it's interesting to see how people think of themselves. Like my replacement is definitely artist, like he thinks of himself.
Yeah, Miguel is more of that new wave contemporary juggling.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right. And for him, I think it's like this is like a really good gig. Like the stability. He's been given a lot of freedom with the act, which I think is beautiful. If he had to do throw for throw, what I've been doing, I don't think he would stay here for very long. Think so. I'll be curious to find out like how his relationship to juggling and to the act changes over time.
Definitely.
So send me a text.
Yeah. I will. No, but it's great. All right. The thing you're most looking forward to. Okay, bang. Once you're in that plane back, do you think you're gonna be having a sense of relief or a sense of nostalgia? I mean, you cannot plan what's going on. But,
right. I think I'm excited about having some stability in terms of where I am in the world. Like I've been living out of suitcases for almost 10 years now. Like even before Soleil, I was like always driving and touring and things. And so I bought this. It seems so stupid, but at the Christmas market in Paris, I bought like this beautiful like Tibetan carving wall hanging. And I've just been fantasizing about where am I going to hang. I can put a nail in the wall of the house that I own, and I can hang up this thing. And it's like that is just mind-blowing. It's such a big difference. So that's exciting. I'm excited about
the sense of having a base.
Yeah. Having a home, having a place to go back to. I think about Spain, and I just think about like I don't know what month we were in, what city. I remember if maybe it was hot or cold, or I was pretty sure that's the city where it snowed that one time. I think I sort of you see these like ghosts of hotel rooms that you've stayed in, and no, like actually having a location that you can identify with. It's like this is where I am. That's so cool. And I mean, I say that and like I'll be in Philadelphia for 3 days, and I'm basically back on tour for another month. But just knowing that I can leave my things at a place and I don't have to travel with everything is a real sense of freedom that's coming with that. So this book, a lot of people have reached out to me and expressed interests, and And I think that'll be really nice. It's kind of a gift to the juggling world. It's done so much for me, you know. As I say that, it's not really a gift because I am selling it. And I'm just, you know, I'm not trying to make a fortune or anything. I just want to cover the expenses of printing it because it's been an expensive thing. But without this job, you know, the salary that supported me to put money into this, and the schedule that supported me, you know, time to work on it. That's cool. Not that there hasn't been sacrifice. Like a lot of people have asked me, you know, like, oh, you do 400 shows a year, and then on top of that, you wrote a book. Like, wow. It's like, well, you know, you read instead of going to the movies. Like, I don't know what you say.
Yeah, it keeps you fresh and.
Yeah, it's good to have a project, especially
you have
with
projects.
a gig like this.
When I did the DVD thing, that was when I was working 35 shows a week in Disney.
Yeah, right.
But still, I needed something to hang on to, like to do that Planet Diabolo DVD, in order to just keep a fresh look to my own passion and art. If not, I would have snapped. You know,
It gives you a different perspective on everything.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
Well, I look forward for that book.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, let's see. I hope it.
That's great.
well.
And anyway, I'm pretty sure we'll cross either on a festival or are you gonna be? Hopefully on a festival. It'd be great to go to a festival.
Yeah. Have a chance to just like hang out. No responsibilities. Maybe a gala show. But
Maybe
I want to introduce you at a gala show.
Okay, that'd be great. I would love to do this. I never did a festival in the US, so either in the US or in Canada. I would love to go.
Yeah, I know some people.
I know you know. Great.
Cool, man. You want to get some Indian food?
Well, I'm pretty ready for some Indian food right now.
Let's get some Indian food.
Let's go, bro.
Yeah, man.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, of course.
Have a great show tonight, by the way.
Thank you.
I'll be there.
Last one.
I'll be there throwing a few balls.
Yeah. Perfect.
Cool.